are ready to start our webinar. And on today's webinar, we will actually cover the BIM libraries compliant methods for international standard and classification. So as usually on our BIM for Manufacturers series, we're actually covering different topics of aspects related with the BIM libraries and the BIM content. If you're not familiar with our series, I definitely recommend you to check our site bimstreamer.com, where under the knowledge section you can find the recordings from previous episodes. And we've just released an episode that took place at the beginning of May, where together with Rafał Mus and Grzegorz Wilk, we were presenting different strategies for preparing the BIM libraries, for preparing the BIM content for, I think, two of the most popular BIM platforms, which is Revit and ArchiCAD. But let's get back to our today's agenda and to our today's guests. So I would like to introduce our first speaker, who is a technical director of buildingSmartFrance and also a project manager of the bSDD project. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to welcome Frédéric Grant. Hello, Frédéric.
Hello. Hello all. Thank you for the introduction.
Thank you. Thank you for the participation. And as usual, in addition to the theoretical part, we've also prepared a technical demo that presents you the utilization of the knowledge that you are about to see on the current episode. And as usual, I invited project manager of the BIM Streamer project, Mr. Adam Konca. Hello, Adam.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Adam, a small request from our side, if you could mute yourself when you're not talking, as somehow we see some noises on the background.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get on and see what's on the current agenda. So today we will cover the topic of the international classification standard compliance with the utilization of the bSDD. But what exactly is the bSDD? We'll cover that in the first part of this series. And in the second one, Frédéric will also explain for which purposes the bSDD can be used for. As mentioned before, in the last part, Adam will present some utilization of this bSDD knowledge in a form of a live demo. And at the very end, we're of course welcome to listen some questions from you, from the audience. So before we start, I think that when it comes to, especially when it comes to our guest, which comes from France, I was managed to find some very interesting quotation that refers to also quite famous Frenchman, which comes from Napoleon Bonaparte, which states, "The impossible is a word to be found only in the dictionary of tools." So ladies and gentlemen, today we will talk about the dictionary, but definitely not the dictionary of fools, but about the dictionary of the building smart. So Frédéric, the stage is yours. Could you tell us what the bSDD is all about?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Martin. Just a quick comment on Napoleon. A fun fact about this guy is that one of his main characteristic for French guys is that he was a small guy. And in French, my name, Grant, means tall. So I will try to be as different as possible. Okay, so let's see what is bSDD, why it has been created, and well, the main reason is coming from quite a long history, let's say. Many years ago, we just figured out a big issue we have in BIM project. Let's assume I'm an engineer, and as an engineer on a building project, I will have to make several different calculations. I will have to make, for example, structural calculations on my building, just to be sure it will not fall down when people will be inside. And for that, I will have to follow specific European regulation, European standards, which are called, for example, Eurocodes. So I will have to have on my walls, on my slabs, etc., some specific properties I will have to take care about for my calculations. And Then I will have to make some acoustic calculations, and in this case, I will have to follow again European standards, which are EN blah 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 blah. I will have to make some thermal calculations on my building, some low carbon calculations. And for all those calculations, I will have to deal with specific properties, specific definitions, and each of those are coming from different sources of information. Even if they are coming from standards, they will be provided differently. Each of these sources has its own structure, and all the properties are defined in different ways. And so that's the issue I need to be able to solve to be efficient in a BIM project and in BIM processes. So coming from that, a working group in standardization made some really strong statements. And the first one was that we need trusted definitions. If we cannot trust the semantics, the properties, the definition of the objects we use in a BIM project, we will never use them because we don't trust them. It's impossible to make contracts, for example, on something you don't trust. So that's really important to have this. And the second strong statement following is that the definition of a property or an object cannot just be a name plus a text description. If you just have that, it will never work. A property is more than just a name and a definition. You will have to know what is data type. Sorry, what's the kind of value you are waiting? Do you have a set of available value for it? Well, we will see some examples in Adam demo of these things, so I won't go further on that. But that's really important to understand that the definition cannot just be a name plus a textual description. And then we need a standardized way to describe all those things, to attach all those metadata, to define the semantics we are using. And that's really important to have a standard for that. We have stated that we will be able to handle a dictionary with two kinds of concepts, which are properties and groups of properties, meaning objects, property sets, and so on, plus relationships between them. And the last but not least was that we will probably never end with the Lord of the Rings things, a dictionary to rule them all. It will probably never happen. But as long as we are able to interconnect dictionaries and to structure their content in the same way and in a standard way, then that's not an issue. We will be able to have a kind of network of dictionaries, and we will be able to find the definitions in each dictionary, which is providing the one we are searching for in a standardized way. And coming from those, well, we have the issue, we have the statements, and then we've been working for something like 5 or 6 years to create some standards to define exactly that. So those standards are EN ISO 23386, which is about the metadata to define the content of the dictionary and the processes to improve this content and to make sure that we can trust it. We have EN ISO 23387, which is about describing data templates, how we should structure a data template for construction objects. And the last one is 1206-3, which is also well known as IFD standard, which is a kind of schema to structure the information in a database. So we have a problem to solve. We have some statement to solve it. Then we have 3 standards which are published to solve this problem. And then we have the bSDD, the buildingSmart Data Dictionary, which has been built upon those standards, which is implementing the standards. And at least bSDD that's quite a simple thing. It's providing a service which allows you to host and publish your dictionaries, your classifications, your regulations, your standards, your company-specific definitions and dictionaries in a structured way, following those standards. So that's just a way to host and publish this content, following the standards, describing the way to structure and provide dictionary and semantic contents in a BIM project. So that's exactly the goal of bSDD, hosting and publishing place for all those kind of things. So I like to call it a federation service, because you are not pushing just let's say classification omniclass, classification uniclass, IFC data schema and properties, standards for Eurocodes. They are all pushed in bSDD? Yes. We call that a domain, so each one has its own domain, and each content provider is keeping the ownership of its domain, so it's the only one in charge of it, is the only one who can change it. But more than that, bSDD will allow you to make connection between them, meaning that I will be able to connect some IFC entities, IFC properties to uniclass code, to standards, to, for example, A-team classification. I'm just looking at the same time in the chat, and yes, A-team is part of the bSDD and already has connections with IFC. I think Adam will have a small chat about that in his presentation, so I won't go further. But A-team is part of these interconnected things. And more than that, bSDD will also allow you to connect to external dictionaries. So we use a kind of something quite close to linked data technology. I don't want to go into the technology, that's not the purpose, but via specific what we call URIs, you will have links from bSDD to external dictionaries, again, following the same way of structuring the information. And that's just a quick picture on what I'm just trying to explain. So on the left-hand side, you've got the bSDD with all those domains. We can be, again, regulations, standards, classification systems, dictionaries, which are all interconnected. And you also have those interconnection with external domains, which can be handled everywhere else. No problem. As long as they follow the same standards, then we will be able to interconnect the content of those different things. Just an explanation, maybe more on how we can connect things inside bSDD. So the first one is a simple one. In bSDD, I've got on the right-hand side the IFC dictionary. Of course, bSDD is a buildingSmart international service. So the first thing we can provide is world definitions of IFC entities and IFC properties. And in the structural domain, in IFC, you have something called IFC bridge part.superstructure, which is an easy guess about the superstructure of a bridge. And in the same bSDD, I have another domain. This has been pushed by an international project, which is called Mine Project, and they've been dealing on describing all the properties needed for bridges. And in this dictionary, they have also something called bridge superstructure, with a lot of subparts, with properties, and so on. And bSDD will just allow you to make the link between, hey, in my Mine dictionary, a bridge structure is the same as an IFC bridge part.superstructure. So whatever the way I'm entering bSDD, searching for information about a superstructure of a bridge, I will know that this is the IFC definition. And in the Mine dictionary, I will find more information about, for example, technical properties for this bridge. So that's the way we will have a first connection. So let's say that's an easy way, but I will try to make some really more advanced mapping between things. And then I'm going back to the classification systems. So again, on the right-hand side, IFC domain, IFC dictionary. And in IFC, I have an entity which is called IFC wall. And attached to this IFC wall, I have a pset, a property set, which is called pset wall common. And this pset wall common can have many properties, but at least it can have a property which is called load bearing, which is a Boolean, which can be true or false, and a property which is external, which can be, again, true or false. On the left-hand side, I have a Dutch classification, which is called NLSFB. And in this Dutch classification, I have a code 22.21, which is load-bearing interior wall. Until now, it was just impossible to automatically say in a BIM tool that this classification code can be attached to an IFC wall, because that's not the truth. An IFC wall is not the same as a load-bearing interior wall. So what bSDD will provide you is the ability to say, okay, my code 22.21 load-bearing interior wall has two properties, which are the IFC properties. So I'm connecting my classification code to IFC properties, but I'm doing more than that. I'm saying that for this classification code, those properties have the value true for load-bearing and false for is external. So first thing, my classification code is connected to two IFC properties with a specific value on them, true and false. And then I will be able, if I'm clicking the right arrow, that's better, I will be able to say, okay, my 22.21 classification code is the same as an IFC wall plus load bearing equal true plus is external equal false. And then I have a real mapping between a BIM model with IFC, defined with IFC, and a classification code. Meaning that if I'm connecting in my BIM model to bSDD, I will be able to automatically assign some classification codes because I'm already knowing that this is an IFC wall and knowing that load bearing equal true and is external equal false. So that's really advanced mapping tools that are provided by bSDD, which allow you, for example, you are in your BIM model, you can attach directly this code, and the other way around, if you have a BIM model with this classification code, you can check if this classification code is valid just by checking the values of the properties. So that's one of the use case provided by bSDD, this way of advanced mapping between domains and between entities.
So Frédéric, if I may ask before we go further, because this is quite interesting, especially this possibility of translating the one classification or a standard into another one. So let's say that we're actually preparing the BIM libraries, the BIM content, because we are more like a manufacturers that would like to be available on several markets and would like to also provide a different, let's say, set of attributes for different markets and for different classification system which are specific for the particular markets, or even a general contractors, because we also know that even the general contractors also might have their own, let's say, standard convention of naming the attributes and so on. So if there is or let's say if there is a mapping between the, for instance, the IFC or E-team with some other classification system that might be relevant. So as far as I understand, it's possible that if I'm creating the BIM files, I could the BIM libraries, I could automatically prepare a different kind of BIM libraries for different classification, different markets, different general contractors, thanks to the bSDD. bSDD can transform that, can act as a dictionary, right? So it can translate one classification into another in an automated way. Is that correct?
Yes, exactly. That's one of the use cases which we are trying to address. Yes.
So it would be pretty straightforward to, let's say, prepare the BIM content specific for the region, for the language, for the classifications, for specific standards.
Yes, you can clearly imagine using bSDD also to have some prepared requirements for a BIM project. So that's
brilliant. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, please continue.
Okay, this slide is really important for me. That's really to understand. Well, I've been talking about what is bSDD, what it is for. So that's a service to publish and distribute. You can host many different standards and domains. You can connect them. You can connect outside. You keep the ownership of what you do. You can extend and reuse standards. That's about what you just said, Martin. You can also add a specific country or company standards. But for me, the really important thing is what is not bSDD. bSDD is not hosting the project data, and it will never do. bSDD is not hosting manufacturer product data. That's again connected to your question, Martin. We will never host manufacturer product data. We will never be a catalog as bSDD. We are just hosting the definitions and the links between all those definitions. That's nothing else. Well, that's already a lot, but that's nothing else than that. And it is not planned to make it a standard itself. We are hosting the standards, but we are not providing a standard. We are not providing a standard dictionary. That's not the purpose. So no project data, no product data, and not a standard, but a tool to distribute and publish the content. That's really important for me to emphasize what is not bSDD, just to avoid misunderstandings around it.
So what I would need to do if I would like to host my own standard, my own classification, Because as far as I understand, everyone can actually be the owner of the domain, as you mentioned, right?
Domain, yeah. I will come to that in a minute.
All right. So please.
So that's a really good question. You are introducing my next slide. So let's say, in my mind, we have two different kinds of users of bSDD. The first one is the content owners, people who want to publish content. So that's exactly your question, Martin, again. I am in charge of standardization to things. I have a classification system. I have a specific dictionary. I have ontologies. I'm buildingSmart International, and I have Ifc to provide. I will contact buildingSmart International to ask for a domain. buildingSmart International will provide me an access code and create my domain in the database. And then I will be in charge of pushing inside bSDD for my domain, my properties, my groups of properties, my p-sets, my objects, my data templates, whatever. I will reuse the units dimensions that we already have. I will push my possible values and so on. And after that, in my domain, I will create links to other domains. So I will have access to the domains from other guys, and I will just create those links and this mapping to other domains to create this federation of dictionaries. So as a content provider, I will just have to go to buildingSmart International and ask to create a domain and push my content inside it. What we will do is checking that the structure of my content is the right one, is corresponding to the 23386 standards I've been talking about earlier. And if it's well formed, well structured, we will push it and make it available for you inside bSDD. So that's the first possibility. And second one, I'm not a content provider, but I'm a user of a dictionary. So as a user, I can be a BIM modeler, I can be a client, I can be an engineer. That was my first example. I can be a cost estimator, I can be a BIM manager, facility manager, whatever. And I will have many ways to use bSDD. For example, I will use it to search definitions in any language. Something that I think which is really interesting is I'm a client. I have to create requirements for my BIM project. I will follow ISO 19650, those exchange requirements and all these kind of things. So I have to create requirements. Instead of writing down in an Excel file, I need this property, this property, this property for this kind of object, I will use bSDD to say, okay, I will need to have, in my BIM model, I want to have an IFC file with IFC spaces. In the spaces, I want to have IFC wall. And for a space, I want to have this property from bSDD, this one, and this one. So creating requirements. And after that, if I have been using bSDD to do that, I will be able to check that my requirements are fulfilled at the end of the project by just, again, connecting my tool to bSDD and checking, well, is this property available in my BIM model? Yes, no. If it's available, does it fit its definition? If I have, for example, a set of possible values, is the value provided is part of this set, etc., etc. So, for example, that's a really important use case for me. Create requirements, check those requirements, and then improving the quality of my BIM process. Second one, I'm a contractor. I have specific requirements in these files coming from the client. I will have to sign a contract with my client. And if I'm signing a contract, it will be really precise inside it. For the concrete, I want to have access to the compressive strength of the concrete. I will contractualize on a clear definition, which is stored on the database following standards. So when I will sign a contract, I will know that the value provided by this property is the one required by this definition. So that's another example, and you can already imagine a lot of different examples like this one. Maybe a last one. I'm a manufacturer. I have to describe my products with specific attributes, specific properties around it. If I'm doing that by following a dictionary which is standardized, I will not have to provide the same thing twice or 3 times because people are asking for the same property, but not exactly the same, depending on the use case of my product. Here, I will describe it following a structured way and find information about which are the properties I need to provide for my product. So again, that's another quick example. Quickly,
so Frédéric, maybe before we go, apology for this interruption. Maybe before we go to the next slide, we have another question which I think it's worth mentioning and also answering. So the question states: who is maintaining the definition and the mappings? Is it periodic process, for instance, eTeam, besides static version 6, 7, 8? Etc. is also providing dynamic classification that is changing day by day. So probably the question is who is in charge of updating the classification, the domains, so to say.
Each content provider who has his own domain is in charge of it.
So in this case, it would be eTeam. eTeam is responsible for that.
Yes, and for example, that's the case. eTeam have pushed eTeam 7 in bSDD, and then they have pushed a new release, which is eTeam 8. So that's up to them to maintain the content and to check that it's always up to date.
So eTeam 8 is already within eTeam 8 is already within bSDD?
It's already in the prototype database. Not sure about the production one. I need to check just to be sure.
Okay. So most likely they are only providing the static version rather than the dynamic one.
Right now, yes.
Okay. Exactly. So most likely the eTeam static is within the bSDD and dynamic not. Okay, please proceed, Frédéric.
Yeah. That's exactly that. Okay, so about quickly about the business model, we already addressed that, so I will be fast. But right now, all the data published in bSDD is available for free. Anyone can access it and use it. But the data owners, they have to pay a hosting fee to buildingSmart International to provide their content inside bSDD. Of course, they stay the owner, and they can publish it under the license they want. And again, we are just as buildingSmart International, the hosting and service provider, nothing else. We know that some content providers, they would like to use bSDD, but with some private or paying content. So in the future, we will probably provide this, but then the license fee will be paid to the content owner, not to buildingSmart. So we will never address this topic. And quickly, I'm close to the end. I'm quite long, I'm sorry. How to access the data? Well, mainly bSDD is a database. This is mainly ready to be accessed through APIs, through specific tools. Adam will make a demo on that. But for example, I'm in Revit. I have a Revit plugin which will access bSDD and bring back the content, allow me to browse the content, etc. So that's mainly an API thing. So we have a JSON API, we have GraphQL, that's mostly for geeks, let's say, and we have a way to provide the content corresponding to the prerequisite from those ISO standards. So that's mainly the way to access it. And to finish my topic today, this is we had an hackathon in March for bSDD and for the software vendors, and we had another one this last month in May for the content provider. And from those workshops and hackathon, we already saw some connected softwares to bSDD. For example, Autodesk is working on a plugin for Forge to access the content on bSDD and provide the dictionary content in all their tools. There are also private companies like Neonex who created Revit plugins directly to access bSDD. Google SketchUp already has a connection to bSDD. BIM Data is a BIM collaborative platform which has a connection to bSDD. Aka Software, which is an Italian company, they have many tools, BIM modelers, and their BIM platform are connected to bSDD, and then you can improve and enhance the definition of properties and classifications inside your BIM models by using this kind of tools. So just a bunch of quick examples of tools already connected to it.
Yeah, and right now you can also add the BIMstreamer logo to this slide because we are just connected.
Exactly, and that was exactly why this is my last slide, that just to give the floor to Adam and to say, here we have a new one, and let's have a look at it.
All right, Adam, so thank you for preparing the demo. I know that it was pretty much in a rush, but luckily we've managed to deliver it. So I will right now hand over the stage to you, and if you could show us how the bSDD actually can be utilized for managing the BIM content.
Okay, thank you, Marcin. Thank you, Frédéric. Yes, similar to any other demos, it was in rush. Okay, let's start. So for the demo purposes, we have chosen the radiator product. In BIMstreamer configuration file, we have provided two families, and we are going to show you the Ifc validation. So we have provided the Ifc class, which for the radiators is Ifc space heater Ifc class. And further in the configuration file, we have provided the corresponding attributes for this Ifc class, and we didn't provide all of the attributes for both families, just to be able to show you the difference on the validation. BIMstreamer is integrated with bSDD API. So let's check on Swagger how it works. To get the attributes from the classification, we need to use the first method, the classification, and we need to provide the namespace URI with the Ifc space heater defining the class. And when we execute it, in a response body, we can see the corresponding attributes defined for this special Ifc class. As you can see, there is quite a lot of them. Now let's compare sample attributes with our configuration file. Yes, here we have the reference attribute and status. And bSDD API provides quite a lot of information about the attributes. One of it is property code, which is used as a code of an attribute in a BIMstreamer. There is also a name of this attribute in English, description defining what this attribute is all about, and, for example, the property set, which define the group where these attributes should be visible. Let's check the validation on the BIMstreamer. We have chosen the family, the classification Ifc 4.3, and the Ifc class attribute, which defines the classification. And here we can see that the validation show us 13 warnings. And you can see the result of the validation in a table. The first column show us the name of the attribute. The second one is the value of the attribute that we have in the platform that we provide for this product. And in case it was provided, it's visible. And then the status is, this is the third column, the status is correct. And in case the data is missing, the status is missing. The fourth column is the attribute description, which describe the attribute, and it's taken also from the bSDD API. Now let's check the validation of the second radiator. For the second one, we have provided all of the attributes for this Ifc class, so there should be 0 warnings in the table. Yeah, there is 0 warnings, and all data were provided. Now let's finish the synchronization and check the results of the generated families. let's go to the product details. Yes, here we have the OBJ generated and the gallery, and here we have the IFC attributes in dedicated sections. You can see that we have IFC data with all of the IFC attributes defined for this IFC class. This example is in English. I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
In German, I guess.
Yeah, this is in German, and the corresponding p-sets groups where we have just the attributes that should be stored for these p-sets. Now let's switch to English language, and here we have the same attributes but in English.
So in that case, we've taken the attributes values from the Excel sheet, but we validated them against the bSDD API to verify whether there is something which is missing or not. So we can also improve the data quality when we're connected with bSDD, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And this is just the example of the validation. However, it can be used in many ways. I think the most interesting will be the mapping between the classifications. So we can check the mappings through the bSDD and send the corresponding attributes for the destination countries. For example, some Dutch standards for Netherlands and Belgium. Different standards for Germany or Poland, and we can do it automatically by checking the mappings through the bSDD.
Okay.
Back to the presentation. Now let's download the generated Revit files, and we can see how the IFC attributes looks in the Revit. Here we have IFC parameter sections. And now we downloading the file in a second language. Yeah, and here are there was the attributes in German. And now the last thing we can show you is how the data are available on the online library for the designers. Everything was pre-generated, so it was done on the server side. So designers don't have to install any plugins because they can just download the file from the web. And here you can see also the IFC attributes that are displayed in appropriate data sections. And I think that's, one more thing. The files that was generated are available under the download button or through the basket.
Okay.
And that's pretty much all for the demo. As I said, it was just a simple verification of the validation. However, as Napoleon said, we are developers and we do not have the impossible in our dictionary. So in case you have any other idea how the bSDD API and bSDD data could help you to create your BIM files, we can for sure implement it.
Yeah, especially the part related with the translation of different classification. I think that once we have more translation available from classification A into classification B, I think that this would be a very powerful tool, especially if the BIM content needs to be provided for several regions. I think that this might be one of the key features of the buildingSmart data dictionary. So thank you very much, Adam, for the presentation. And are there any questions until now, because we're soon about to finish the webinar? Are there any questions up until now to one of our experts. In the meantime, maybe I will have some questions to Frédéric in regards to bSDD. So, Frédéric, if you could tell me, what are the future plans for the bSDD in general?
Well, many. No, the first one is that right now bSDD is not officially released. This is still a prototype, and it will be officially launched this summer. So we have still some small tweaks to do on it, especially regarding the compliance with the IFD standard, which is under revision. We are trying to organize workshops for content providers to help them understand how to provide their content, how to federate the content by creating mappings. We will have a new hackathon with software vendors, again, to help them use the API. Of course, we will improve this API. Well, Adam was saying, if you have any idea of what we can provide by using the API, that's the same on the bSDD side. If you have any needs from the API, we will be happy to add some specific calls for this API to help you do something we didn't think about before. And buildingSmart is also working on a checking tool, well, kind of validation tool around bSDD, which will import an Ifc file and check it, just to check that you have what are the required properties inside the file. Yes, they are filled in, these kind of things. So that's something we are working on right now, this validation tool for an Ifc file. And yeah, that's what we have on our plate right now. And yeah, that's still a lot. But yeah, we are trying to improve it as best as we can.
Yeah, Frédéric mentioned at one of the initial slides about the data templates and checking the quality of the data. So maybe taking that occasion, I will already invite you for our next webinar, which will take place right after the summer vacations. So on the 14th of September, our guest would be Roland Dominici from buildingSmartFrance. And when it comes to the data quality management and data templates in particular, I think that might be something which you might find interesting. So if there are still some, of course, if you like to participate, you can just click the register button and it will navigate you to the registration page. It's on the top is on the top of your screen. In addition to that, we're still waiting for some question. I see that there is one. Which currently standards are mapped and which are on the roadmap already defined, agreed? So what are the future and current standards and the dictionaries or domains which are going to be or is already available within the bSDD?
So we already have, of course, the Ifc content, which is inside bSDD. We have this Dutch classification and LSFB. We have Uniclass. We have ETIM 7 and ETIM 8. Still, I'm not sure that 8 is published on the production, but we have 7 and 8. Well, I guess I'm missing some. We have the Plan BIM from Chile, who is pushing also his content and his requirements for his national BIM regulation. So all those guys are making links between all the others already. I know that E-Class is interested in working on providing its content inside bSDD. So that's on the loop. There is an IFC project in buildingSmart International, which is for Rails, and they will start using bSDD. Well, we have a meeting next week to start it. We have the municipality of Amsterdam. They have a specific ontology, and they are working on pushing also their content inside bSDD. So a lot of popping initiatives all around the world. So I really hope that by the end of this year, we will have kind of a lot of content and connections between this.
Yeah, I think that bSDD is right now on track and speeds up quite rapidly, because as you mentioned before, lots of the things are going around the topic. So I'm sure that within a year from now we will be talking about way more classification and standardization that will be available, not only available within the bSDD, but also will have the links between one another, which I think that is one of the greatest features that bSDD brings into the market. Adam, in that case, maybe I do have one more question from your side, because you mentioned that the files were generated on the server side, and hence no Revit plugin is necessary, or any kind of BIM add-on extra software is necessary. But is it possible to work with Revit plugin as well? Because you were only the download through the web.
Yes, sure. Actually, data can be published anywhere. So we showed the example that they were published to the BIM Streamer Honor library. However, they can be used also. The data can be used also with Revit plugins, with mobile applications, or different BIM portals.
You also mentioned that we can publish it anywhere. So is it possible, for instance, to publish it to, for instance, some wholesalers portals which also offers BIM content?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
As I said, impossible doesn't exist. So
okay. So let's follow the Napoleon rules in regards.
The only thing we have to do is to integrate with the software that needs this data, and that's all.
Okay. If there are any other questions, we will wait something like 5 seconds more, and if not, we're about to wrap up. So I think that we're pretty much it. So 5, 4, 3.
Just a quick comment.
Okay, please do.
I have registered for your next webinar, and a quick comment about Roland Dominici we will be presenting. I've been talking about those quality standards at the beginning of my presentation, and Roland Dominici is the guy who was leading this work at European level. So please listen to him. He will explain you exactly about this quality insurance. That said, will be really interesting, I'm pretty sure.
I'm sure of that, and thank you, Frédéric, for this side note. And so I definitely recommend you to register for the next episode of our BIM for Manufacturers series. And from this place, I would like to thank you once again, Frédéric, for your support, especially in regards of the integration with the bSDD API. It was very helpful. And it helped us to integrate quite quickly. Thank you, Adam, for preparing this demo, and apology for this rush, but you know how it works. Luckily, we've managed to deliver it. And of course, I thank you all of the attendees for the participation in this webinar. In case you would like to receive the slide deck from today's presentation, just make a screenshot of this slide and send me an email with the request for the slide deck. In case you would like to also connect with the guys, then also send it over, and I will pass it on to both to Frédéric and to Adam. Oh, I see that Roland also commented your side note, Frédéric. So Roland is also with us today, and he will be with us right after the vacation. So thank you very much, and see you within 2 months from now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.